The year is 323 BCE. The greatest empire the world had ever seen stretches from Greece to the edge of India. Cities bear one man's name, armies move at his command. The map looks stable, it is not. Within months, the empire of Alexander the Great will turn inward. Generals who once marched side by side will now measure each other as targets, oaths will fracture, friendships will harden into borders. The age of conquest will end, and a new age will begin, one defined not by expansion, but by inheritance, fought with spears. This is the story of how victory created the seeds of civil war, and how an empire that should have lasted chose not to. This channel tells the stories behind turning points in history, not just what happened, but why systems cracked, why strong structures failed, why disciplined people made choices that locked the future into place. Today, we look at the wars of the Diadochi, the wars of the successes when unity was possible, yet fragmentation became inevitable. At first glance, this seems simple. Alexander died young, his empire fell apart. That is the headline we usually hear, but that is not the real question. The real question is this: how does an empire built on momentum survive the moment the momentum stops? This is not only about men fighting for a crown, it is about why a single, continuous Mediterranean Persian superstate never existed, why no one ruled this territory as one piece again, why the death of one person reshaped the map for centuries. And to understand that, we have to go back to the days before a sword was drawn between former brothers in arms. When Alexander died in Babylon, he left behind something he had never planned, a finished conquest without a finished system. He had no adult heir, his son was yet unborn. The only possible successor was a half-brother with limited ability to rule. The armies were loyal, but loyalty had always been to Alexander personally. The administration stretched across cultures, languages, traditions, tax systems, and roads that had been Persian long before they were Macedonian. This was the core problem. The empire worked because one man held all the moving parts together by motion. He was always marching, always appearing, always judging. When that stopped, gravity returned. The generals assembled in Babylon faced three pressures at once. First, the soldiers wanted stability. They had marched for years. They wanted pay, land, and recognition. Second, local elites across the empire watched carefully. They would obey a system, they would not obey chaos. Third, every commander commanding troops had power, real power regardless of titles. Armies made kings, not crowns. Out of this came negotiations, not ideals, not grand visions, practical arrangements. The result was a compromise. Royal authority would, in theory, be preserved. The unborn child of Alexander and Roxana might eventually become king. In the meantime, rule would be shared and administered by regents and governors. Provinces were assigned to capable men: Ptolemy in Egypt, Antigonus in Asia Minor, Seleucus in Babylon, Lysimachus in Thrace, and others across the empire. On paper, unity remained. In reality, unity now depended on restraint. The turning point did not come with a single betrayal or a dramatic cry for kingship. It came in quieter ways, in decisions that looked temporary but became permanent. The first decision was about legitimacy. Everyone agreed that Alexander's house still mattered, but the regents who acted in the name of the royal family now held authority without being kings. This created an invisible tension. They ruled, but they did not own the rule. They commanded, but in another's name. That is a dangerous place to stand. The second decision was about geography. Each general governed a region that required him to build administration, negotiate with local powers, recruit soldiers, and collect taxes. The longer they did this, the more those regions began to feel like their own states. Regional power hardened into regional identity. The third decision was about armies. Soldiers followed commanders they knew. They trusted men they had marched with. Over time, loyalty shifted from the idea of a united empire to the very real loyalty toward the man who gave orders and paid wages. None of these choices were reckless. None of these men set out to break the world in half. They simply behaved rationally inside a structure that no longer had its center. And then the pressure increased. Civil conflict first emerged around the regency itself. Those who controlled the royal family controlled legitimacy. This created struggles around who could speak in the name of Alexander's heirs. Parents, wives, children, uncles, and guardians became political objects. Armies moved to protect princes and queens. Protection easily becomes detention. Detention easily becomes elimination. As these crises unfolded, something subtle happened. Each war hardened the idea that survival depended on territorial control. A general who lost his province lost everything: revenue, troops, influence. The battlefield was no longer about glory. It was about preserving a power base. The most disciplined among them understood this. They fortified cities, they secured ports, they built fleets and roads. They negotiated not just with Greek and Macedonian elites, but with Persian administrators, Egyptian priests, and local aristocracies who had outlived empires before. War became as much about paperwork and alliances as about phalanxes and cavalry. Yet the conflict kept expanding. Armies clashed in Greece, in Asia Minor, in Syria, in Mesopotamia. Battles like Ipsus would later define the map, but the true story beneath the famous names was simpler and colder. Coordination without one central authority is fragile. The more time passed, the harder unity became to imagine. In these wars, no one was a simple hero or a simple villain. Each leader faced dilemmas that rewarded patience and punished impulse. Seizing the title of king too early risked uniting enemies against you. Waiting too long meant being overtaken by more decisive rivals. Discipline mattered. Some built systems that could outlast them. Ptolemy in Egypt did not chase the entire empire. He built a defensible kingdom around the Nile. Strong administration, economic stability, a powerful navy, and a clear identity rooted in both Greek and Egyptian traditions. Seleucus further east constructed a vast state that required constant management of cities, roads, and Antigonus attempted to rebuild unity by domination, organizing resources, armies, and logistics on an imperial scale. None of this was about romantic heroism. It was about administration under pressure. The real risk was not losing a battle. It was losing the ability to recruit, feed, and pay soldiers afterward. It was losing legitimacy. It was losing the perception that rule made sense. So choices became cautious, then calculated, then ruthless. The outcome, after years of conflict, was not a restored empire. It was a map in pieces, not chaotic pieces, but structured ones. Multiple Hellenistic kingdoms emerged, each ruled by a former general or his descendants. Egypt under the Seleucid Empire stretching across the Near East, Macedon, and territories in Greece under Antigonid control. Independent leagues, city-states, and smaller dynasties filling the spaces in between. These states were not accidents. They were the end result of practical problem-solving. They had administrations, royal courts, tax systems, armies with supply lines, and diplomatic networks. Greek language and culture spread through cities founded or reorganized during this time, mixing with ancient local traditions. Trade patterns shifted. New centers of power appeared: Alexandria, Antioch, Pergamon. The unity that had once seemed possible now looked unrealistic, even undesirable. These kingdoms could govern more efficiently at their scale. They could defend their borders. They could survive transitions of power. The empire had not shattered in one dramatic moment. It had, step by step, reorganized itself into something more sustainable for the people controlling it. The larger impact of the wars of the Diadochi reached far beyond the lifetimes of the generals who fought them. They set the framework for the Hellenistic world, a world in which Greek culture interacted deeply with Egyptian, Persian, Mesopotamian, and other ancient traditions. Philosophy, science, art, and administration grew in these mixed environments. The political map that Rome later encountered was shaped by these successor states. Rome did not conquer Alexander's unified empire. It conquered the kingdoms created from its remains. They also revealed a deeper truth about power. An empire built around one extraordinary individual is strong while motion continues. But unless it creates institutions that function without that individual, it holds instability inside it from the beginning. Alexander achieved what few conquerors ever could. What he did not do was outlive himself through a durable system. The wars that followed were not just a collapse, they were a decision by reality to distribute power where it could actually be managed. So what do we take from this? The wars of the Diadochi show how success can produce its own crisis. They show how loyalty, logistics, and legitimacy shape history more than single moments of glory. And they remind us that the most important question is often not who won, but what structure did victory leave behind. If you enjoyed this calm, deep dive look into a turning point that changed the map of the ancient world, let me know what you want to see next. Which forgotten empire, decisive siege, or political decision should we explore? If you found this valuable, consider liking the video and subscribing. It helps this channel continue telling intelligent cinematic stories about the past. And remember, history rarely breaks all at once. Most of the time, it simply decides to become something else.